Alright. One small package. Quite the opposite of last week's huge package, I know. There's only 2 items in it, but that's what I was expecting. First up is 2.43. It's Blu-ray. Let's see if there's a sexy, well, considering the volleyball is up there. Is that what it's called? Yeah, volleyball. Yeah, I didn't expect, even though he looks like he was going for a, low one. Well, it's a boys volleyball team right there. Ooh. I do like how that's blue and that's orange. They're good contrasty colors. Got a region A, B with an English dub. The ball is in their court. I guess that applies to what they're doing. No surprise, although I am surprised. So these have 2 specific pictures on them, so that makes me think those 2 characters are very important for it. Is that them there? Could be. Interesting. Nice and straightforward. And then we have Obsolete, which sounds like, based on the name and some of the imagery here, a sort of thing where it's like, okay, well, maybe him or his mecha or something are considered obsolete, but they still perform really well or something. The aliens sold mankind something amazing, then we used it to kill each other. Interesting. That sounds very different than I originally thought. Region A. English dub, though, which surprised me. I almost thought this would be Japanese with English subtitles. Oh, single disc. Does that mean this is a movie? It probably said right there, and you're like, no, go read a little close. It includes all 12 episodes on one disc. Oh, it's a 12-episode series. Huh. Well, you know, that's quick. But here's this week's anime Blu-ray collection update. Alright. A couple things to talk about. I guess let's begin with Reincarnated as a Slime Season 2. Now, again, I think this is Season 2 Part 1, so the stuff I watched isn't actually on here. But, you know, on Crunchyroll, I watched the remainder of Slime Season 2. And it ended pretty nicely. I think my favorite scene from this season is probably just in one specific episode, maybe. But I guess I can't talk about it too much. It did have some of the stereotypical stuff that this show is known for. A couple of slight curves to it, but I kind of feel like, you know, if you enjoy the general vibe of the show going into Season 2, then I think Season 2 kind of keeps that feeling pretty good. It feels like it's moving forward, but it's also, you know, building something. I'm trying to think if that's a good description or not, but I don't know. I'm exhausted, which is why this is important to talk about, because, you know, I had somebody recommending this to me, and I've only watched 3 episodes so far, and it's been good, but it hasn't been something that has engaged me so much that despite my exhaustion, I'm watching. I think some of the problem is other things came up, and I'm like, kind of curious about this, I'm kind of curious about that, but I'm barely having the energy to move forward and actually do stuff. And part of this is preparing for an upcoming trip later this month. I think there was something else, but I don't know. But so given that, I've watched 3 episodes, and I'm not stopping at 3 episodes, but I keep just not having the energy to put on the next episode. I'm zoning out, zombieing out a whole lot. and I'm feeling like some of the other things I watched are slightly more out of obligation. But of the 3 episodes I watched so far, again, good. It hasn't really struck me as definitely magical, but I can see how it would potentially be that kind of show in the long run. And maybe even some people find it, magical is not the right word, but special, beautiful, something like that. I can see somebody finding that in the first 3 episodes as well. It's dealing with some stuff that are kind of heavy topics. Yeah, I think that's the right word, the right description. I'm trying to think if there's something I feel feels a little off with the main character's characterization, but it's a little bit, and not big enough to make a big deal. I guess it kind of feels like I'm not quite sure if they want her to be kind of the quiet type or a little sociable, shy person sort of thing. And I feel those are kind of close to each other as a person, and maybe this show is maybe not quite separating those, but I'm not sure. I think that's the feeling I get, but for the most part, her interacting with the other characters has been just kind of adorable. But I don't know what else to think about it, because I feel like I need to spend more time watching it to get a long-term feel. Let's see. The other thing to comment on is the girl there who I was commenting on had a very alluring look to her on the DVD. Well, I think she's supposed to, so that's some pretty good character design. And the fact that our main character has the 2-color eye thing, whose name I keep forgetting how to spell, pronounce, or anything other than the fact that it exists. Like, apparently that's a bigger deal in the show than me looking on the edge, looking at it would say, because, you know, to me it's a pretty thing, a notable thing. It's like, oh, that makes him kind of cute, but it's not there just to do that. And it does kind of reflect how maybe some people in real life maybe experience that sort of thing. And I'm not sure if I'd say that everything in it is absolutely realistic, but I think there are some things about it that, you know, kind of have some of that feel to it, which is why I feel like it could be a really special show to some people. And why that would be a good reason for that, yeah. Let's see. I also watched 3 episodes of Izakaya. I was kind of curious, because I think I had seen it before, but I kind of looked over because I'm like, oh, that's, I didn't know that was the Japanese name for Restaurant to Another World. But it turns out that it's a completely different anime. And I don't know if I can remember the original one enough. I kind of said that, you know, there was things about the original that were neat. It's usually kind of about the food. I feel like it's the same thing for this one, but this one is even more about the food. And I feel like they are not, it's a weird excuse for settings, and it feels like it worked better than the other one, but I don't know if I just don't remember Restaurant to Another World well enough to properly compare them. So this feeling is one I don't trust too much, but I'm just reporting on it because I remembered it. And it's interesting because, like, the last third of the episode is dedicated to the real life cooking of some of these foods that they were showing in the show. So you could say this one's much more dedicated to the food. And otherwise, this kind of shows is the isekai that this restaurant connects to is so far just a medieval isekai, not medieval fantasy. So the other one definitely had demi-humans and adventures and things like that. This one so far is simpler in that regard. Now, that doesn't mean it's not a medieval fantasy, but it means that the show hasn't felt a need to demonstrate that with the first 3 episodes. I also really like how the first episode kind of starts off with this observation of, oh my god, there's things made of glass here. That's really fucking rare. You sure this place isn't outside of our budget? ... And, you know, the entire point is that these places are very reasonable to afford for these medieval isekai. and they get introduced to Japanese foods. And it's also really interesting because, there's certainly things about it that they do that's just like, I can tell as somebody that doesn't normally eat these foods that, this show is probably a really great example of just how people's tastes differ across cultures. Like, you're so used to eating certain things in certain cultures, and this show reflects that. And I think it's also a really good reflection of that, because you can see that there. You can say, well, I don't feel this same thing because I don't know what they're eating other than conceptually, but I feel like you can appreciate the food that's in there and say, I still would like to eat it. I don't remember if the restaurant To Another World did that or not, but it's interesting. Alright, now trying to go down the list of currently airing stuff I'm keeping up on. Spy Family Episode 5 was fun. It didn't start out seeming like it would be as fun, and so Episode 4 is definitely a higher point than Episode 5, but Episode 5 was just the show having fun. I feel like that's it. Maybe there's more importantness to it than just that. Like, there's those couple of things that get established and whatnot, but you put those aside, it's a pretty fun episode. I wouldn't say it's a series losing steam, but it's definitely the series knowing that not everything can be the greatest episode ever, if I were to try to describe it. And I definitely am still looking forward to more episodes. Let's see, we got The Greatest Demon Lord is Reincarnated as a Typical Nobody, Episode 5, which I think is continuing. Like I said, it's not bad. It's just kind of, it feels like it's a little bit closer to the underlying theme that I talked about the show, about friends and making friends and stuff like that. But I guess it's hard to feel like how our main character is kind of in line with or antithetical to that per se. It just sort of is, and so it means, it's cool stuff going on, but yeah, I don't know. Skeleton Knight Episode 5. Let's see. We had some good stuff happen in there that I've been wanting to have happen. I didn't think about mentioning this last week, but it did feel like Episode 4 ended at a weird place. So Episode 5 resumed at that. I'm like, is this show kind of being slightly off? But no, it feels like Episode 5 did finish a small little arc it was doing. It did some quite notable stuff, and I'm definitely curious to see where Episode 6 is going. It does seem to be kind of building up. I mentioned that it doesn't feel like there's this, oh my god, the world is at stake going on, but there is this kind of, bigger thing going on that it feels like everything is kind of building up to. Nothing that feels like it'll be exciting, but it means you do continue watching it feeling like there's a sense of purpose, so it's pretty entertaining still. The Dawn of the Witch Episode 5. So I guess I wasn't quite sure where the previous episode ended thematically, but this one kind of resolved that stuff and is at a place where it's like, again, I these are kind of important things I'm talking about, or narrative and theming sort of stuff, and I'm not getting good feeling what theming Dawn of the Witch is going for. It's got some neat narrative. It's nothing too extravagant. It's just kind of a pleasant watch. It's not as drawn out as that Paladin one, but at the same time, I'm not exactly sure what I'm looking forward to continuing to watch it. I'm, I guess, just able to watch it because it's just kind of pleasant to digest as you go along, says the person in my stomach. And then finally, Trapped in a Dating Sim, The World of Otome Games is Tough for Mobs, Episode 6. There's some stuff about there that I feel like is a slight step back from some of the things I mentioned was entertaining about it recently, but then it stepped forward back into that again, and it's done some fun things, even though it's, no longer the awesome all the time sort of fun that it was for a couple episodes there, but I didn't expect it to stay there. I was kind of wondering where it was going to go from there, and so far, it's going okay. And I am definitely curious about this little stinger they gave at the end of the episode. So, entertaining little show. Alright. Other big things. I did watch Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and it's an okay to good movie. I think, yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think the best way to summarize the movie is it's got a lot of great ideas with a lot of great executions, but going back to that thing I was realizing I needed to talk about, this thing, theming and narrative, they feel a little patched together. And it's not the worst job, and there are a couple of things in there that are just like, what? And I wish I could talk about that one specific thing, but I really can't, because that's a big spoiler for the movie, and I don't want to spoil it for y'all. Especially since it's not necessarily a good spoiler, but it is a really good example of what I mean by the show, because the setup for that awkward transition is great. The execution for the scenes are great, but the way they stitch together doesn't match with the narrative flow it needs to have that it established earlier on. And according to the thematic thing, it may almost seem like it has a thematic element going to it. Like, it feels like it's a follow-up to the Avengers Infinity War stuff, similar to how Iron Man 3 was a follow-up to the first Avengers movie, which was, you know, this big important hero. How did those events affect him? Like, Iron Man was dealing with PTSD sort of stuff. And this one is about how Doctor Strange is dealing with, did I make the right choices? Which sounds like it's actually a really good idea for a theme and a thing about multiverses, right? Because the entire idea there is, depending on how you approach it, maybe there's one where he took a better path that he didn't know that he could have taken. And, you know, it almost feels like the movie is about that theme, but the problem is the conflict is sort of that, but then the way the conflict needs to be resolved kind of isn't. And that's what I mean by the theming isn't quite there. It's the ideas of a really good theme are there. They're addressed at multiple points in the story, but for some reason it doesn't feel like it flows like it needs to. And maybe they were trying to go for something different, but it's interesting. So again, what does it all mean? Well, I'm saying it's okay to good, which basically means it's just not great. It's not something where you'll go in there and say, God damn, that was the best Avengers movie I've seen, or Marvel Cinematic Universe movie I've seen. In fact, most people will probably find Spider-Man No Way Home to have been better. And I say most people. I shouldn't be a predictor of people. But I mean, like, something about that one clicked right. And I don't know that it was a theming of the narrative per se. Like, I kind of mentioned there were some things about the narrative that weren't quite right. But the theming, I think, somehow it feels like it was there. Like, it tied up the correct way, and somehow it was super relevant to absolutely everything that was going on at the same time, and really relevant to Spider-Man as a character. And it's also possible that maybe I'm just not feeling that with Doctor Strange, because maybe they were trying to aim at something more Doctor Strange that I wasn't aware of. But I didn't get that impression, and take that with a grain of salt. Those of you who know the character, the franchise is better, feel free to, you know, but yeah, basically, it means, yeah, it won't be the greatest. You'll probably watch it saying, it's jumping around a little bit more than I think it really should. Like, why did it introduce those things if they weren't going to do absolutely anything at all? I mean, maybe they didn't do absolutely nothing at all, but for all intents and purposes, they did. It's weird, but, you know, you put that aside and it's stuff. If you're asking yourself the question, do I need to have watched the previous Disney Plus series stuff? I'm not sure about all the series, but I would say that I think WandaVision would definitely be appropriate to watch before this. I'm trying to think, and I haven't watched them, so I'm just trying to remember, can I pick these things out? There are other little things I think my friend referenced, and so those Disney Plus series should be considered part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Much more so than the old Netflix stuff, which ended up branching off into their own thing. So Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Daredevil, you know, as good as those shows were, kind of detached from the Marvel Cinematic Universe and start doing their own thing, and maybe they tried to tie some of it back in there maybe more recently, but you know, those are not as important to watch as stuff from Disney Plus, I think. And I don't know that we need everything from Disney Plus, but WandaVision is definitely important because it feels like Wanda and Doctor Strange's relationship are kind of important. I don't remember. I thought they were going to have Doctor Strange show up at the end of WandaVision and to set up this movie, and I think maybe they didn't, and that's one of the kind of boo, stick to your guns, tell the story you need to tell, because I don't know if this movie would have needed it or not, but I did get the impression that, you know, that one is probably one of the more important Disney Plus ones before you go into watching this. And truth be told, I would have guessed that beforehand, just knowing what WandaVision was generally about. For those of you who don't know what it's about, I'm just letting you know. Yeah, see if you can prioritize seeing it before you see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. But yeah. Okay, other stuff worth talking about. Animal Crossing, I've finally got all of the villagers on my third island, so I've gone ahead and uploaded that to the dream stuff tonight, last night, whichever. I'll probably try to do it again during the day, so that it's daytime in the thing, but, because I think it saves it whatever time of night it is, or whatever time of day it is whenever you save it in. I did it just a little bit ago, so it's dark at night. But that said, the island's far from finished. The house scored over 100,000 the last time the HHA scheduled it, so that was kind of surprising because I was just like, oh, I'm putting these things in here. It's further along than I guess I would have thought it would be, and I do have an idea of what I want to do with some of the rest of it. I just haven't had a chance yet. And I need to build up the island, but the problem is I need to fill the island with a lot of DIY stuff, and I don't know what projects I want to work on in particular. Got weird things that I'm doing, but I need more than just little bitty weird things here and there. I need, like, entire areas dedicated to creating scenic areas. See if I can get it out of 3-star into 4-star. Maybe even 5-star, but I'm so far away and going so slowly that I'm not very confident that will happen. And maybe that will make sense as a way to do it. Well, I guess there's one idea, but might interfere with that plan. So, things to think about, but for the most part, I do have all the gyroids now, which means that the amount of work they all need to do can be lessened. All bridges and ramps that I intend to build are built, so I don't need to spend money on that. So at this point, money is just being saved up in order to expand the basement of Naughty number 3, and I guess maybe start unlocking some of the co-op stuff. Although I have the most important one unlocked, and that's the art one, because I'm trying to fill in Nadia number two's museum. Maybe Nadia number one will be an important priority after that as well. Nadia number three gets to keep their museum mostly empty. Which means no Brewster and no third Breweroid. But that's okay. I think that was part of the plan all along. Alright. I think that's a bunch of the random stuff updated. Unless anybody was looking for the DVD update. And that one, again, I've been very low energy, so I've been barely doing the bare minimum to just like keep up with dailies and maybe playing a little bit with people here and there. But very low energy, very exhausted. But I do have my Pyramid Head. I think he was Prestige 3, level 50 last time. I just didn't know where the perks are. He now has all the perks. And he has everything at least to perk level 2, and he has maybe a little over half of them to perk level 3. So, in theory, if I get a lot of times killer and just get a lot of blood points, Pyramid Head's going to get maxed out, and then I'm working on Michael Myers, the shape. And the reason for that is just because his ability to be undetectable in Tier 1 is very valuable for certain challenges that require you to equip something and be undetectable and hit survivors or something like that. Well, he can just equip the perk, be undetectable, and as long as I can hit people with him without tearing up, yeah, all the better. And I can, but mostly probably because I'm dealing with lower MMR survivors. Probably, mostly. So let's not make any mistake about whether or not that indicates that I'm definitely good at the game or anything like that. No, Dead by Daylight's one of those games where you just have to remember sometimes your skill isn't the only skill used to evaluate the outcome of the match, because you've got 4 other survivors as well. Sometimes you are much more map aware, map controlling than they are. They're randos, so they don't coordinate as well. You force them to coordinate the way you want them to, so that, I'm a friendly killer, so I like them to all eventually escape. But I like to put off them knowing that as long as possible. I mean, it probably becomes really obvious if I'm like, I don't know if these people will successfully unhook if I unhook a second time. So, only 1 hooks for everybody. Just get my 4 stacks of barbecue and then whack everybody a whole lot. So, find survivors, chases, damage generators, use my power, max out powers, max out all of those. Good stuff. I forgot why I was even talking about that. But yeah, because Michael Myers will allow me to do some of that stuff. Alright, that's the real end of this update. Y'all, have a nice week.